Today, I'm going to show you the blueprint to guarantee that you get at least 100K for your business fast and easy. I've helped multiple business owners get the money that they needed for their business, and now I can show you not what I think works, but what I know works. Then you can use your funding to leverage other people's money, hold your cash on reserve, buy your time back, and take advantage of high-level perks and travel. First off, let's get in alignment with the best form of funding so that we're on the same page here. So of course, always get grants. That's free money. So if you know how to get them, where to get them, and I do have some videos on the channel covering some grants. But if you have the time and the knowledge, or if you have somebody to help you get the grants, definitely always get free money. Now, the problem is most people limit their funding strategy at getting the free money and grants, and they don't make sure that their business can have all of the money that it could possibly have available to it, because you really never know what you're going to need in business. You never know what emergencies might come up, and it always pays to have access to more and not need it versus needing it and not having access to it. Mind you that with coming economic changes, because it's not looking like the economy is going to get any better, credit requirements will get tighter and it will get harder to get funds. So if you're not planning to get some now before things get tighter, then you could be setting your business up for failure. Now, moving on, I want you to forget about trying to get a loan for your business, because this is usually people's next best go-to option. The reason why I'm saying that is because loans usually have higher requirements than other forms of business credit. For instance, you usually have to be in business for more than 2 years before you even qualify to try to get funding for your business. So that automatically rules out brand new businesses with no revenue coming in yet. And a lot of you guys that have been in business for a few years, but still haven't reached that threshold. Not to mention, even beyond the 2-year mark, there are still higher requirements placed on loans versus a credit card. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is these no PG options that most people want to go with. A lot of times, it's usually because maybe your credit isn't where it needs to be, so you're trying to avoid using your personal credit, and you just want to build up business credit so that you can try to get funds using that only. Some of you guys just don't want to have any type of, personal liability attached to your business funds. Now, I do get the idea of not wanting to have personal liability for business funds, but using your personal credit to guarantee funding still works in your benefit, because it is a much faster path to getting the money that you need for your business. And if you get most business credit cards, they won't report to your personal credit anyway, so it won't actually affect your personal credit score. Now, if you're one of those whose credit just isn't in a good place to use your personal credit to get funding in that faster path, then you have to go, let's say a few months to a year route of trying to build up business credit with vendor accounts. The type of funding that you get with no PG, usually you do have to show proof of revenue. And with pretty much all of the business credit options that use a personal guarantee, that is the right kind of funding. You don't have to show proof of income at all. You can literally state your income, state your revenue, and project your revenue. So going the PG route will actually help you get the money faster, usually help you get larger amounts, and you don't have to come up with as much paperwork as you would going a different way. And the other thing I want to cover is don't be scared of debt. A lot of people try to avoid getting funding for their business at all because they're scared of debt, especially in the form of credit cards, which is what we're talking about today. But I tell everybody, don't be scared of debt. Have a plan for your debt, because we're all getting in business so that we can generate money to, more than likely replace our jobs and start working full time for ourselves. We're not in business just to get access to credit, just to spend it on personal things. So you should have a plan for the money that you plan on getting so that you know how you're going to spend it, so that you can get a return on investment for that money that you spent. And in that instance, the debt doesn't really mean anything because you're using it for things that will generate more revenue to you. And it also doesn't hurt to already have some money coming in from other avenues that you can use to pay the card. And ultimately, that's one of the other benefits of using business credit cards to fund your business, because you have a revolving line with that. So basically, you can pay for a large ticket item, and then you can float the payment on that, making smaller minimal payments until you have all of the money that you need to pay that back. And also with access to business credit cards, you don't have to pay it back until you use it. So once you have access to it, you just have access to money without having the payment, which is the opposite. When you get a loan, as soon as you get it, you have access to all of the money, but you also have to start paying that money back immediately. So hopefully that shows you how using business credit cards to fund your business is going to be one of the best strategies, especially when added in with grants too. Now, one of the most confusing things is getting approved for those credit cards and getting high credit limits to ensure that you have more than enough money that you need. And what we're shooting for in the purpose of this video is getting you to 100K or better. Now, first off, I want to let you know that I created a free assessment that you can use to input information that you would put on the application today with the current status of your business, and you can see if you will be approved, how much you will be approved for, and how fast you'll be able to get access to that funding. Also, if the information that you put in shows you that you aren't currently ready or that you will get approved for lower limits, you'll get recommendations on what you need to fix and how long it might take before you're in place to actually get the funding that you want at high limits. So that free assessment is down in the description, so check that out. It takes like 5 minutes, 16 questions, so it won't take long at all. Now, the first data point we're going to cover is the score. Now, of course, ideally, the higher your score, the better, the more likely you will be approved. I tell people you want your credit score to be at about a 720 or better. That's not to say you won't get approved at a lower score, but it definitely increases your chances of not seeing a denial to have your score as high as possible. You don't need to be in the 800s, but if you're above 720, you're in a real good spot. Now, the lowest I would say that you can try to sneak in the door would be about a 680, but you can also run a risk of getting less money that way. Now, let's talk about negative marks on your credit. Now, you definitely don't want to have a bunch of inquiries within a recent time frame. I would say ideally no more than 5-6 inquiries in a year, and definitely not more than 3 or so within the last 6 months. If you have late payments showing up on your credit, that is something that you definitely don't want within the last year. Of course, we want it to be further out than that, but at the bare minimum, not having any within the last year. And you definitely don't want to have any charge-offs or collections reporting on your credit report. I would say I've seen somebody get approved and get high limits having like one collection on that credit report, but ideally you don't want to have anything negative to try to get the highest amounts of money that you could possibly get. Now, personal credit limits, this is something that most people don't know that they need to be concerned about. And when it comes to personal credit limits, this is actually a big determinant of how much you'll be able to get on the business side, because usually you can get 3 times what you have in personal credit limits. Now, keep in mind that you do have to have those other factors to align that are important as far as your credit score, negative marks on your credit, and we'll get to income and revenue in a second. But this is a big factor in you having like a good foundation to be able to get those higher amounts. And ideally, you want to have at least 30,000 in personal credit limits reporting to your credit report. So if you're one of those people that have been avoiding personal credit cards, is going to hurt you when you're trying to get funding on the business side. Now, if you're enjoying this video so far, make sure you hit the thumbs up button to like it, to let YouTube know this is a good video, so other people that need this information will be shown this information. And subscribe to the channel to make sure you continue to get great information like this to help you get funding you need for your business. Okay, so real quick, let's talk about your credit age. With this, it's pretty simple. You want to have at least more than a year of credit history because, of course, if they see you haven't had much experience with credit, that can also limit you in getting approved. So you definitely want to have established at least a year of credit. Now, liquidity is something that's also important and overlooked. You want to have money on hand so that you are able to show that you are trying to build a relationship with the bank and show that you have access to your own cash, which helps them feel more confident in giving you higher limits of credit. Now, I would say you really want to have, maybe like 10,000 to play with in regards to liquidity you can show to really help you get up there in the higher limits. On the lower end, you probably want to have about 6,000 that you can play with while you're going through the process of trying to get the funding from the banks that you need. And there are other reasons that you would need to have more liquidity, have some cash on hand while going through this entire process. So make sure that you don't ignore this part. And I know you might be thinking, why should I have that much capital on hand when I'm trying to get funding from the bank? Well, if it takes 10,000 in funds to help you get access to $100,000, $200,000, isn't that really worth it? And I mean, with liquidity, you're just showing money that you have. Either way, it's going to be worth it because you will get access to way more money than what you had before, while that cash is able to sit there looking nice in your bank account. Now, the income and revenue are going to be extremely important to the amount of funding that you get. But this is where a lot of people get tripped up and they leave money off the table, not realizing that they had more money that they could have reported on the application. So I'm going to give you a detailed description of how you can figure out what you are able to put on the application in this next video, where I tell you pretty much everything that you need to put on an application to get approved at high amounts. But if your credit is already ready to go and you're in a good place, and you just want to know what banks to go to, check out this video for the 5 best banks to get the highest amounts. And I'll see you in the next video.